Hi, my name is Matthew Bellisario. Thanks for coming by the BellisarioSonic YouTube channel here on the outskirts of Birmingham, Alabama. Today I've got a wonderful conversation to bring to you guys. As you guys know, every Sunday I try to bring you a new conversation with a new musician most of the time. And this is one of the great privileges that I have on this channel, is to talk with these wonderful musicians who have a lot of insight into jazz music. And this case, though, we're going to talk to, I think, somebody who's underappreciated, because the musicians kind of get all of the spotlight, if you will. But what about the guys that are behind the scenes making these wonderful records like this one sitting next to me? On the Cellar Music Group label, I've done so many of these reviews that I started to get familiar with who mixes and masters and the recording engineers. And I kept seeing the name Sheldon Zaharko show up on a bunch of these different records, whether it's as a recording engineer or a mixing engineer, or in this case, like on this album where he does the recording engineering, the mixing, and the mastering. I always thought that these guys are so much underappreciated, and we all love listening and talking about how great these records sound, but we really don't know what goes on behind the scenes. And so I'm really excited to share with you this wonderful conversation I had with Sheldon. He was nice enough to come on and spend an hour with me and talk about the process of recording these albums, mixing them, talking about how he, his thought process, how he works through these different projects, and all that kind of fun stuff. So tune in, definitely leave your comments, give the thumbs up, share this with your friends, and let's just get the word out together for all these people that make this wonderful music come into our homes, whether they're on CD or on vinyl record here, or whether we're streaming them. It's always interesting to go behind the scenes and learn more about what happens to make this show up at your doorstep. We'll talk to you soon. Enjoy. Hello, my name is Matthew Bellisario. Welcome to the BellisarioSonic YouTube channel, and I'm very excited to have a special guest here who does a lot of things behind the scenes of these wonderful records that we talk about on this channel. He's a Juno Award-winning engineer, 4-time recipient of the Western Canadian Music Award for Engineer of the Year. And he is behind the scenes on a lot of these great records like the one you see next to me. And this is known as the best ears in the city in Vancouver. Welcome, Sheldon Zaharko.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing very good. I really appreciate you coming on the channel and talking with me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, so I ran across you, Sheldon, I'm a big jazz fan, so I started noticing your name kept coming up on all of these different jazz albums, and of course you do all genres of music, it looks like. But how did you get started in engineering? And you're a recording engineer, a mixing engineer, and a mastering engineer, correct?
Yeah, I guess you can say that. I don't really consider myself a mastering engineer. It just sometimes happens as part of the whole process. Like, here's your product. And
yeah,
just what I do to the mix to get it finished. If I'm mastering it, then that's mastered.
Yeah. How did you get started in I know you around on your bio that you've played music, you're in bands, but how did you get started in this?
Well, I played clarinet like from grade 2 to grade 9, and then found out that that wasn't really cool, so I played electric bass in the high school band and joined a rock band and wanted to record, so all I had was a cassette deck and a couple of microphones, and that's how that started. And then volunteering at the high school, setting up the PA for special events and sock hops, sometimes even DJing, that stuff. And that's kind of how I got into it. And then in high school we had to what's your career choice going to be? And I just couldn't think of anything that fit. And I found in a magazine a recording school in Vancouver, Trebas. So I said, I think I'm going to learn how to record. And the people in the music program and stuff were really supportive and helped me get to that point.
So you attended that Trebas Institute,
Yeah.
which is in Vancouver, correct?
Yeah, they had one location here and then two or three others throughout Canada at that time.
And then it says you went and you started working at the factory. Was that the next thing you started working? Was that your first major?
That was the first major one, but before that there was a couple years where I was assisting in another studio in the basement, but on that same Neve console.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and the factory was like the B room of the Little Mountain Studios. So when I was in high school listening to my favorite records, which Motley Crue and all that, said produced by Bob Brock, recorded at Little Mountain Sound. So when I got to work in that building, like, wow, this is so cool.
Yeah, so you started work. That's an analog console, correct?
Yeah, that was like a 32 input large format Neve console. That's what I learned on, and that's what I worked on for 17, 18 years.
So when you got to you were the head engineer at the factory between 93 and 2011, I read here, so that's quite some time. What changes? I'm always curious about the changes that came about going from that analog into the digital days, and then how digital has improved over time.
Well, I still very much am analog, and the computer, like, I'm not really a big plug-in guy or anything. Like, if something really needs work, I'll run it out of the computer into a Neve channel here on my desk and record it back in. And when I'm mixing, I'm summing through a summing mixer, going through a stereo SSL compressor. I stay very much analog. I guess they call that kind of like a hybrid.
Right, because your recordings sound very, very good. They're very analog sounding, especially when I listen to these jazz recordings. And so they do sound different on CD versus vinyl. And I guess part of that's going to be just the very nature of the actual medium itself, listening to it back. But when you're doing a project, and I guess it depends on whether you're just the recording engineer or the mixing engineer or what have you. But what's kind of the process when you, like, let's take this album here that's just came out, and you're actually doing all three. You were the recording engineer, the mixing engineer, and you mastered it. So can you kind of go through the process a little bit on all three of those?
Yeah, that's a pretty cool record. I had a lot of fun doing that one. It's also recorded. It's like a 20-minute walk for me to go to the Warehouse studio where we did that record, and that's Bryan Adams' studio. And it's a huge room, and I think Jerry and Corey were in the big room, and then in the ISOs were the other guys. And we go in probably an hour or so before they arrive, and we have a plan. Usually it's all figured out, like where everybody's going to be, and we start setting up all the mics. And there's so many tube mics there, so it takes a while to hook all those up. But the preparation is the biggest thing, and a good, comfortable, like, people don't feel claustrophobic or the sun's hitting them in the eyes. You got to think of everything and make it the most comfortable for them. Plan in advance. That's about it. Like, that's the biggest part for me. And then all these beautiful microphones and the Neve preamps they got there. You basically put it in front of those brilliant musicians, turn up the faders, and that's the sound. You don't have to mess with it. If you are, you're probably screwing it up.
You're trying to get the most natural sound, I guess. When you're doing a jazz record like this, right, you're trying to get the most natural sound out of the instruments that you can get.
Yeah, and these guys have like such incredible tone, and the drums, like, that's all them. Like, their tuning and how they're hitting it, that's the sound. It's not too much me, sorry to say.
Yeah, well, it's always interests me because that's the first thing I usually hear or listen to is the drums, and on some recordings they can sound kind of dead. They don't. I guess I call it kind of the resonance of the drums. Yeah. And on yours, it always sounds very good. Like, the drums sound very resonant. And so, are there certain I guess there are probably certain mics that you use for certain instruments, correct?
Yeah, pretty much find go-to things and maybe change it up a little bit here and there, but always a go-to thing.
And there are tube mics on, like, as far as like the saxophones and stuff like that, you're using just, they're playing right in front of the tube mic?
Yeah, like for the Jerry and Corey recording, Corey's a big fan of the RCA 44, the ribbon mic.
Mm.
So we had one of those on each of them, and then a tube U47, like basically right under it, so you could blend them. I also remember on the U47s there was a tube Pultec EQ, maybe with a little bit of top end added.
And so it's pretty simple setup. And on the drums, how many mics you usually put on the drums for something like this?
2 overheads, and then I have an option, like there's 2 bass drum mics, large diaphragm condenser and a dynamic, and you can blend or choose whatever you want in the mix. And on the snare there's a couple on top, usually a 414 and sometimes a 57 or a Telefunken M80 Bayer 201. That I kind of change once in a while. But those are just for options. Like sometimes if they're on brushes, I want to use the 414. Or if they're hitting heavy on the stick, I'll just turn up the Bayer 201 and not have to run out there and change it.
So you have everything set up so that when you come down to mix time, you can pretty much, everything's there.
Yeah, and also when you go into these big studios, you're starting from a clean slate. Like when you walk in, the room is empty, and you got to take all these microphones out of boxes, hook them up to the power supplies, and we do that in about an hour. Then in about 45 minutes, an hour of testing, and then we're rolling.
Now, does it depend on what studio you're going to, as to what sound do you think you're going to get? I mean, do you try to go for the same sound because they all don't sound the same. They all sound similar. Right. They all sound very good, but does each studio have its own sound? Do you use the same mics in each studio, or just whatever's available, or the best thing available there?
Well, we're lucky here. Like all the studios we go to, which is 2 or 3, they all have the high-end microphones and the high-end preamps. But I think the sound might be a lot to do with the arrangement of the musicians, like how much leakage, like all in one room or ISO'd, where they're going to, like drums in the big room, drums in the ISO booth, or like that's the biggest sound choice.
And is that something what do you prefer for that as far as getting the sound?
Well, leakage is a nice thing, like when the drums are bleeding and stuff, but if it's out of hand, it's not good. But it's the most natural sound, and sometimes the musicians can even play without wearing headphones, which even makes the music better.
Right. It seems to me like in jazz, you're trying to kind of capture almost a live performance, because most of the time you're picking the best take from these couple of takes, right? 2 or 3 takes or whatever you do.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because the sound, the more natural the sound, the better. And if you isolate everything, then when you're mixing, when we go to the next step, mixing. So on this one, you recorded it, then you mixed it. Explain to you your thought process when you go to mix everything down, especially when it comes to the panning, because that always interests me, like how much you're going to pan one saxophone this way, one that way, where the drums are going to be, where everything's going to be in the sound stage, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it kind of depends on the instrumentation, and kind of figure it out as we're just setting up and dialing in sounds, kind of whatever you pan just for the reference listening. Quite often will be roughly where it is. I'm a fan of stereo drums and stereo piano, and if there's a couple of saxes, one 50% to the left and the other opposite. I'm not too hardcore fan of the drums all the way on the right.
Yeah.
I have to, and sometimes I like it, but it's not my favorite.
Yeah, a lot of those older recordings are done.
Yeah.
Actually, I was listening to a Coltrane album the other day, and of course, you got all the way to one side, all the way to
Yeah.
the other side, and although it can sound good, it doesn't sound natural to me because
Yeah.
we don't normally hear music like that, right? If you're in the front of a band, you don't hear it like that.
Sometimes it can make sense, like, oh, now I can clearly hear this person, and this guy is perfectly, like, mono stereos are cool too that way for clarity.
And then when you're mixing down, what's kind of the process? So you've got all the different instruments in there. Do you do it in Pro Tools, I guess, or is that where you're mixing it down? Or
Yeah, everything I do is in Pro Tools. Once I leave the studio, I'll come here and I'll prepare like rough mixes for everybody so they can choose the takes, or, oh yeah, make sure you use this solo, or there's one late note in here, can you fix it? And when I'm doing the rough mixes, I'm kind of preparing for the mix. Like, I'm assigning the outputs, cleaning up the starts of some of the takes that I know we're going to use. And that's kind of like quite a bit of it is just the preparation of all that stuff.
and that's all done at what 24-bit or 30-bit floating, or is it what the bit rate?
I've been
is?
using the 32-bit float, and
30.
everything's at 96K.
And when you're mixing like the drums and that kind of thing, and you're going for where it comes across both speakers,
Yeah.
and so how do you place those? Because you have a couple of different microphones there on the drums, the overheads, and then how do you kind of go about placing those in that space?
Well, quite often I'll put the overheads like hard left and hard right, and sometimes even use like a image widener. I got an analog vitalizer in the rack and make it a bit wider, and then bass drum and snare right up the middle, and the toms about 50% left and right. And if there's a room, it'll also be hard left, hard right, most cases.
That kind of gives you a nice spread over the whole.
Yeah.
Yeah. What kind of effects, or do you use plugins in the Pro Tools, or do you use external effects to run things through?
Well, I'm a huge fan of recording the room in the studio. Like, even with Corey and Jerry, like, they don't like a roomy sax, but if there's a nice room tucked in there quietly, it gives it so much dimension. And then I do have reverbs here, like Digital Lexicon 224 I use quite a bit, especially on drums and piano. As far as like saxes and stuff, I use digital plug-in plates mostly. Yeah.
And so once you have it mixed, and you have a final mix that everybody's happy with, and then like on this project now you're going to have to master it. I'm always curious on the mastering process for doing the digital side for streaming for your CD, and then mastering for your vinyl record.
Yeah. See, that's the thing when the mixer is hired to be the mastering. When I deliver these guys, they're here, check this out. There's no stage for mastering other than the song order at that point. I do everything I can to make it as best as it can be. Here you go, what do you think? They don't go, oh, that's great, I can't wait to hear what the mastering does. Well, it's basically done when I give it to them. I just make it the best I can be.
And then, but is there a difference in the levels and things like that, and what you have to deliver for like streaming, for it to be fit within the streaming parameters and that kind of stuff, versus what gets sent for the vinyl? Or
Well, typically with this kind of music, it's not screaming hot, so I don't worry about it too much for vinyl. Occasionally, it'll get turned down a bit for the vinyl, but not always. I don't use all these fancy meters, like, oh, it's got to be so many LUFS, it's got to be this volume. I mix it and it feels right. If it's too loud, it doesn't feel right. If it's too quiet, it doesn't feel right. And then I'll compare it to a couple of releases that I like or similar at the time, and just, oh yeah, that's within the realm. I like this volume. So not what you're expecting to hear with all these.
No, well, I'm always curious because, you know, you hear, and it might be different for different genres of music. You can add in there, you know, like if you do a rock album,
right,
it's gonna be different than doing a jazz album.
Yeah, it seems more these days. Like I tell people I record jazz for a living. Like I don't do much rock anymore. But it's all feel. The only time I'm serious about meters is in the recording. Like you can't have stuff clipping and you'll ruin it. And sometimes you only get one take, so you can't ruin it. And that's one thing really cool about those big consoles with the VU meters. When that needle is in that VU meter, that's the most musical sounding, like the console, that's the sweet spot. But if you looked at your Pro Tools meter, it wouldn't be, oh, I got to turn that up, you would think. But no, I like using those VU meters on the console. That's the most musical sweet spot, like the console delivers.
So you're kind of really, almost looking at it as an analog.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because you can, on your Pro Tools meter, you can push everything way up, but it sounds strange, and it's not going over. And if you looked at the console, the meters would just be like pegged. There's like such a difference between those meters.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I guess one of the big questions I have is if I listen to this on CD and I listen to this on vinyl, they still sound different. Okay. And to me, and it could be my imagination, or it could be maybe just the fact that, you know, when they use the RIA curve, right? So they take it, when they go to cut it, it has to go through that process. It gets put on the vinyl, and then it gets converted back through your phono stage. Maybe that's all part of it, but to me, the drums always sound like they're more resonant, and the bass a lot of times it might not be as much bass, but it sounds warmer. Okay. Do you have any insight into, other than the fact that it's on the vinyl record? And
I don't know a whole lot about it, and that's cool that it sounds that way and warmer in that. I guess if I was cutting the lacquer, which I'm not, right? So that's where those guys would typically like master for vinyl, because they're cutting it, they're seeing all their instruments and under the microscope and all that. Okay, so I'm not doing that. Like that's probably a very important part of that.
Yeah, so it definitely sounds different, and the CD sounds great. Then you hear it on the record, I'm like, whoa, wow. And sometimes, things sound quieter on the CD. There's a lot, less noise floor. You'll still hear a little more on but for some reason the vinyl, again, it could be my imagination or just what I like, but it always sounds like it's warmer, more vibrant or something.
Like I guess too, like those files that they get are the 96K 24-bit files to do the cutting.
Right.
Like that's probably a pretty huge thing.
Yeah, that's true, because if you listen to like an SACD, it definitely sounds different than a CD. Yeah, so that's interesting.
But yeah,
what about
nothing different than on that one for sure. It was basically just make it one file for side A and one file for side B and send it off.
And that goes to and that's at the high bit rate. That goes straight over, gets cut for the vinyl, and then the CD and the digital for I guess the streaming online and the CD gets the same exact.
Yep.
Everything's the same on that.
Yeah. Even when I send out to guys, like I get mastering guys to do stuff that I mix for my projects. Typically, they'll just send me a 16-bit 44.1 file that's for everything.
Yeah, and then do you now? I've talked to a couple of people. Talked to Simon Phillips, who he does a lot of his own engineering, recording, and stuff, and a couple of engineers, and they've talked about how it's important. They think it's important to when you import that stuff, even though it's at 16-bit, they're still going to bring it into their DAW at the highest bit rate they can.
Okay, yeah, upsampling, yeah.
Yeah, so when they upsample it, and I guess the reason behind that is when you make changes at a higher bit rate, it doesn't affect, you don't lose quality, where if you just edited at 16-bit, you would lose. Is that accurate? Or
I think so, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so you always try to do it at the highest bit rate you can.
Yeah.
And then even if you export it back out at 16-bit for your CD, you still, or if you make any effects adds or anything like that too, right? If you add anything else, it's going to be at the higher bit rate.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. I want to talk a little bit about the when you do like a live recording.
Okay, yeah.
So like this one, and this, I think you were the live recording engineer for this.
Yeah.
So how you do live recordings? I looked on your website. You take your equipment out. Tell us how you do that. Like, how did you record this?
Well, yeah, I take out actual studio quality microphone preamps, which like weigh so much and they're so big and heavy. Actual studio microphones, microphone stands with cast iron bases, like so much heavy stuff. And that one was recorded at the Frankie's Jazz Club. It's not a ton of room to work, and there's all those guys on that stage, and you got these great big mics, and it's so much fun. But it's not really any different than a studio situation, other than they're all close together. I'm using the same equipment, just not a great big console.
Yeah. How many channels do you usually record? Like how many microphones are you recording for this? Like,
that one probably would have been a 24-track recorder. And
wow,
I actually have 24 high-quality Neve or Focusrite preamps. And it's the same microphones that we use in the studio.
Yeah, so how do you obviously in this setting you've got bleed over everything. I mean, the instruments are all over. How are you able to isolate and get such a good sound? Because this sounds fantastic.
Probably because I didn't mix it. It sounds fantastic. You know what you have to deal with, and you just go for it. Like, I know on the piano, there was a couple options. There was a pair of mics on the strings, and then there was a couple of mics in the hole. Like, those are going to be so useful when the drums are like so close to it. That's you just deal with it the best you can. The bass is always the hardest because they're always the closest to the drum kit. But again, you get options, like hopefully there's an onboard mic, or you give them one to use if they're into it. And hopefully there's a DI. Probably will need it in that case. And maybe even stick a mic on the amp that they're using to monitor on the stage. Like, just have a few options. Not always tons of room to have all this mic stands and stuff, but that's the most challenging part.
Yeah, are the microphones the microphones on the saxophones, or are they in front of them on the stage?
They're in front of them, like the big RCA 44.
Oh wow. That's crazy. So how do you deal with it? They're turning and that kind of stuff, and you just hope it picks up.
It just is what it is. Yeah. Kind of used to that. It's what keeps it real.
Right. Yeah. The real live recording. It's like, you're going to have a little quote unquote imperfections, but really you're capturing the sound of what's going on right then and there.
Yeah. And then usually, like, in the back of the restaurant or whatever, I'll have like a zoom just capturing ambience, and then applause. It sounds dumb if you don't have like quality applause.
Right, yeah. The crowd, a little bit of the crowd noise.
Yeah.
So then once this whole recording's done, you've got 24 tracks, then you basically send all these files. If you're not the one mixing it, like in this case, I don't remember who mixed this one, but you send all the files over, and then they go through and they do what they want for the mixing.
That's right, yeah. Just thinking about the piano again, I think there was another 2 or 3 magnets like on the soundboard of that recording too, I think. So they had lots of options.
Yeah, so that's kind of cool. You're kind of thinking ahead for the person that's going to be mixing it. And the same thing I think on this new one that Brad Turner did. You were the recording engineer for this one,
Yeah.
and then which this one again another wonderful record. But this right here, where did you record this one at? This was
It was at Monarch Studios on Commercial Street. It's a smaller, kind of mid-sized studio, and it's quite tight. It's not like a big live room sound. But they have the API console there, which is really nice for upright bass, I find. Really keeps it tight and focused. It's not so gushy.
now when you're mixing down. I see you got use different speakers. How do you? And you're probably done it so long now, you probably know what you're hearing as to what you're going for. But if I find if I do, recording in my house or whatever, I record something and I'll go play it on my big speakers in the living room and I'll be like, oh, this sounds pretty good. Then I'll play it in my car. I'm like, wow, this doesn't sound very good in the car or whatever. How do you get a mix that sounds good across all different medium? Or what do you kind of go for there?
Well, I think what's happened is working out of my own space for so long, you eventually understand all that, and you get it to a point and you don't even think about it anymore. Like if I was going to different studios and did mixes, I would have to go to the car for sure, listen a whole bunch on different speakers, but like in my space, I'm good. I feel pretty good. And the speakers I listen to is more so like, what do I feel like that day? Not so much as what's it sound like on this speaker or that speaker. It's kind of, what do I feel like hearing today?
Interesting. So like you might use different speakers to mix on one and the other, or do you mix on one set and then when you go back and listen to it on another set just to get, or kind of how's that process?
Yeah, sometimes I even have like another small set of speakers on the side. Like if I want to hear the whole album quietly, it's a good way to do it. Things can stand out that way. But mostly, yeah, it's like, what do I feel like today? Like if I use these speakers, they might fatigue me, or I might want these speakers and feel lots of bass because that's what I feel like today. Not so much as I should use this monitor so the levels are good, and I should use this speaker so the bass is good. It's basically, what do I feel like using today for emotion?
Yeah, that's I think who was it I was listening to? I think it was Bernie Grunman, who does a lot of the analog, masters for the vinyl, and he's talking about how you, depending on what kind of record you're doing, as how you're going to be emotionally connected to that music, and you're trying to get the most that response, I guess, when you're doing a project, whether it's the mixing or the mastering or what have you.
Yeah. At the warehouse lately, I've been using their great big main speakers for all the recording, like exclusively just use these things, and I never had done that before, and I've been getting the best results. You bring it home and the tracking sounds perfect. Just balance it now. I don't have to listen to them loud. Just they're big, that's all.
Yeah.
I don't listen to anything loud.
Well, that's probably, again, you have to preserve your ears too, because if you listen to everything loud, eventually your highs are going to go away, right?
Yeah.
And do you ever mix on headphones?
I probably should, but I don't like it. Like, I might go, okay, I better check the fades, because you'll hear so much more on headphones, but I just don't like headphones.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Do you think things have changed as far as since you've been doing this for a long time? Have things changed as far as you've got so many people streaming music now, listening to it through earbuds and all that? Does that come into consideration in any of the mixing, or you're just doing it? You're not really taking the format into consideration?
I don't take it into consideration unless I'm like mixing an orchestra or something, and I don't want something way doing a solo way on the left because I know that will sound funny on a headphone. That's the only time I think about it. But like in jazz or something, no, I don't think about it at all. Because nothing's really too extreme for that anyways for me.
Yeah, so I would think that the jazz would be, I think it'd be more fun to do because you're trying to get the natural sound of the instruments. But if you're doing another record that has a lot of effects on it, for example,
Right.
Or you do some country stuff, right? Or
Yeah.
that kind of. So how is that different when you're working on that versus the jazz?
I guess you'd use more extreme like spatializers and of course you're using delays and stuff which can really widen stuff. You don't use that in jazz at all. And chorus and all these things to give it more space and dimension and width. Yeah, you don't use any of those things in jazz.
Right, and you in popular music, rock music, what have you, the studio becomes part of the actual musical production a lot of times. Where in jazz, you're trying to get just the people playing the instruments, and so how does that work? Does the artist come to you and say, "Look, I'm kind of going for this kind of a sound. I want my record to sound like this or whatever," and then you're able to incorporate that into the process of mixing and adding in effects and things like that?
Yeah, occasionally artists do that. Not so much in the jazz thing. Sometimes people will say, "Oh, hey, I like this Bill Charlap type of piano sound or something." But also, like I work with Corey so much, and he's the person that hires me. It's not the artist that discovers me and or what they like. They like something about me, and then they choose me. It's not that way at all. But yeah, sometimes they'll have references, but for the most part, not. And then sometimes if you really screw something up, you'll get handed some references.
You've been doing the jazz stuff for so long that it seems like you've got it down. You kind of know what you're going for every time.
Well, like Brad, I've known him for about 25 years. I was just thinking about that the other day. And the mixer on that record, Sean Pierce, he's like a hero of mine. Like his stuff sounds so good no matter what he does. And it was him that introduced me to all this, to the jazz community. Like we were doing like metalwood records and stuff way back in the day with Sean Pierce. And that's who got me into the jazz scene.
Really? Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the last thing I want to talk to you about was the archival releases, which you worked on this one. You worked on Jazz from the Pacific Northwest one, and you also worked on the Ahmad Jamal, right?
Okay, I remember quite a bit about that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to talk a little bit about like what is sound restoration first of all, because it will just say in there sound restoration by
Yeah, like a lot of these, like some of those recordings are from before when I was born, like in the 60s, and there's like problems within them sometimes, like dropouts or distortion, excessive tape hiss or hum sometimes on those old ones, and just getting a good transfer of all those and then trying to figure out how to clean up some of those things and maintain the sound to be the best it can be. I remember like it was a pretty good team of people on that one. Like there was the Zev and Zach, and there was this guy that helped do all the editing. He was like musically like good at picking like if a piano solo needed to be shortened or some solo needed to be shortened. He knew exactly how to do it. He would be the advisor. I think with that one too, they didn't want to have any talking because like there's Jim Wilkie or somebody's talking a lot, like, oh, welcome, here's this, that was this, here's this song. So fading out with the crowd and making it feel natural, or sometimes the crowd will continue into the next song when it really didn't. So that was hard to transition that. Yeah, there was. Well, yeah, we were really picky too, because when I got the transfers for that record, they weren't at the high resolution, so we had to get them retransferred again. And that was a good thing because they ended up sounding better, because Jim Wilkie did it, and he put on some other heads on his tape machine, and they sounded clearer and punchier. It was a good thing. And then also we found with some of the transfers, we wanted to try some of them again, because we noticed, well, maybe the high end is kind of fading out a bit. Maybe the heads got a bit covered during that pass. So I think they were pretty sick of me asking for all these transfers, because there's a lot of music on that record.
Yeah, and there's like several volumes.
Yeah. But we would get together online, like with Zev, and he would hear the transitions and request them to be different. We'd be on Zoom. Oh, faster fade, slower fade. And sometimes you would do edits for them on Zoom, which is always a bit challenging because of delays and stuff. But a fun process, very time consuming, because there's so much music, and time periods too. Like you kind of want to keep everything even with volumes and tone, but it goes for like, I don't know how many, like from the 60s into the late 70s or something.
Yeah, it's a lot of music for sure. It's like 2 LP sets. So you got six vinyl records worth. I have them all. They're really good. So when you're getting them after they've come, someone's taken them already off the tapes and they've given you the files, right?
For the most part, like that one for sure was, yeah. It kind of varies. Like I used to have a Studer 1/4 inch right here, and then I got 3 in the bedroom that I got to get fixed up. But
so you can do tape transfers there if you want.
Yeah, and I have to do some for Corey, actually. I'm going to take him to the warehouse and do it, I think.
Interesting. So once you get these files in there, like how do you clean up a dropout, or how do you without ruining the song? I mean, how is there plugins that can kind of restore some of that, or?
Well, there is some, and then you can use different ones. Like, well, you wouldn't expect this plugin to do it, but I'll try it, and sure, it might work, and you just keep trying. Or sometimes you can stretch out something a tiny bit to cover the dropout, or sometimes you can find another part that's the same. If it's only for like a split, like microsecond, you can probably get away with it, but it's very time consuming.
Yeah, I bet that's probably a lot of, I mean, if you're working on a project like that, that's got to take a lot of hours. I mean,
then I think there was like quite a lot of distortions, and so there's plugins that could deal with that. I think it made it better, but it never always totally got rid of them.
And then so these other albums you did for Corey, you did the Jazz from the Pacific Northwest, which is you worked on that one, and then the latest one is also a really cool project that Corey did of the Dave Robbins Big Band, and I guess it has you on there too, working on some of the sound restoration, right?
Yeah, I think those are more recent, but for some reason they're harder to remember because I think they were quicker or something. But I really like that Shelly Mann record.
Yeah, and this one here came from the studio radio program, so there probably wasn't as much to fix on that, I'm guessing.
Yeah, whenever I get tapes from the CBC, that's what you said?
Yeah.
They sound incredible.
Yeah, that's where that's from.
I'd done a whole bunch of transfers for something that never ever came out, but it was from the 60s, all mono recordings. I baked the tapes, and the transfer sounded like they're recorded today. And the mix was amazing.
Yeah, this sounds fantastic. So that was probably one of the ones you probably didn't have to do a ton of stuff to, probably.
Yeah, most likely it's just picking the takes and the orders and sewing them together so it's a good listening experience. I don't like, I think most of those things flow like it's a concert. It doesn't come to a total no sound ending and then a new thing comes in. It kind of flows.
Right, yeah. Yeah, these are just such great projects. And then you've got a new one coming out, which I don't have yet because it hasn't come out. It's a Jacob Chung live record. And I think you recorded that at Frankie's, I think.
Well, Corey recorded it. Corey's got a whole bunch of microphones and stuff, and I think he decided he's just going to do it himself.
Oh, so or did you do any mixing on that, or is that?
Did mixing, yeah.
Oh, I gotcha.
Yeah, and then I did a lot of running it through analog EQs and stuff and compressors, and such a smoking band that was. I like the Tyler, what's his?
Tyler Henderson and Jacob Chung, yeah.
Yeah. So good. Yeah, just ran it through a bunch of analog gear. That's my thing on that one.
And so Corey recorded that one and gave you the files for that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess he did a pretty good job recording.
Yeah.
So gave you something good to work with?
Hope he paid himself.
Yeah. How many tracks was that one? Do you remember? I kind of geek out on these. I'm always interested.
Geez, I'm gonna say it was maybe 8.
Okay, so
yeah.
Not quite as. Yeah, that's interesting. So you kind of.
I could be wrong, but I'm thinking it probably was 8.
So what other? I'm sure you probably got a lot of other projects you're working on. You're usually involved in some way, shape, or form on a lot of these Cellar Music stuff, and whether you're the recording engineer, the mixing engineer. What for you is your favorite thing to do? Do you like recording it or mixing it, or what's?
Well, I think I'm lucky that the combination of all these things keeps me happy and good. Like I love walking to the studio and recording. I'm always nervous. It's not like it's easy. It's like I'm nervous and it's going to be hard, and if it's not hard, I'm not working hard enough. But then the mixing, too much mixing in a row is not good. You kind of go a bit crazy, and you need a break from it. Nothing worse too than mixing for way too long and without breaks. You could think it's the greatest thing ever, and then in 2 days you listen to it and go, wow, that's just not good.
Yeah, what was I thinking?
Yeah. Then also you hear differently every day. People don't think of that, but like every day you just hear differently based on like emotions or earwax buildup or fatigue, hydration, probably all those things that makes you hear differently. But I'd probably take a good 2 or 3 days to mix one of these records.
And that, so you're talking about kind of like what kind of mood you're in or whatever. If it's something like, I'm going to come back to this one tomorrow. Yeah. I'm going to do something different.
That's the nice thing about being self-employed, and then also about mixing it, and then here you go, what do you think? If you want to come over now, sure, come over. But yeah, like some days you just don't feel like some things. You've scheduled yourself to do it, but you have to change direction for that day or morning, or you have to be in the right emotion.
So do you have people come over, like will Corey come over there and listen to the mix with you, or you just send it to him and he listens to it himself, or?
I'll send it over to him and to the artist, and then they'll give feedback. Sometimes the artist will come over if they're local, sometimes not. Sometimes there's no changes, and sometimes there's a lot of changes, and it could take sometimes a couple of months. Like, it's kind of a slow process. Like I did a Tyler Henderson record, and you would give them the mix to listen to, and about a month later you would get a couple of adjustments, and you'd get to it. Then about a month later, there's a couple of adjustments. It's kind of challenging to stay in the headspace, or when you put it back on, hopefully you like it, because if you didn't, then what?
Right. Yeah.
You can't change it too much. Yeah.
If you make a change, it could change the way something else sounds, right?
That's right. Yep.
And then, so I imagine if you get someone that comes over there, I mean, I don't know, does someone ever come over there and sit with you? Like,
Yep.
well, I don't like that, or I want to hear more bass or whatever.
Yeah, that happens occasionally. Yeah, that's totally fine, but I still like to give it to them to hear it at home first, so they understand it and they come prepared with what they want to adjust. Because like if you come in here cold and listen to something, you don't really understand the room or the speakers. So yeah, I give it to them first. If they want to come in, fine. Most times people coming in, it's for editing. I'm not as musical as them for editing, and having somebody around for that is usually more efficient.
So I'd be like a solo or the end, maybe, I like this ending better. Let's put that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, which a lot of people don't realize. Even back in the day when they did these live jazz recordings, I was reading that they would bring studio musicians back. George Avakian, when he did that Newport recordings, and he would have the studio scheduled, and they come in and fix stuff, and you think you're listening to on some of these, you think you're listening to the live performance, but there could have been editing done.
Yeah. But usually with these cats, there's not too much of that. It's just more musical choices than fixing. It's like, this one's a bit better, or this one's a bit better.
Right.
Yeah. Might be why I like jazz so much. It's like you get these heavy players that they basically push up the faders, and hopefully I don't screw it up, and then we're good.
Yeah, I go. I've recorded. Here we have a jazz jam session here in Birmingham, and so I did a little promo disc I recorded live on a 8-track Tascam, and what's so great about recording them is they play already at a good volume. If you go listen to a rock band and try to do that and try to set up 8 mics and record it, you just, I mean, it's like a nightmare. But you get these guys, the drummer knows how loud to play. He's not overplaying too loud.
Yeah. That's like when you get a jazz group all in one room, like I'll say again, that Tyler Henderson trio I did a recording for, and they're all in one room with no headphones, and exactly, like the drummer plays quietly so he can hear the bass or whatever, and that balance is so important in the recording. Like, it makes sense. You don't have to build it. It's already built in.
Yeah. Well, before we go, what are your thoughts on AI, Sheldon? What are your thoughts on what AI is going to do for music production? Do you think it's going to be a threat? Do you think it's going to take away jobs? What do you think?
I think it'll take away jobs. It's not a threat for me because everything is so much feel to me, and those things won't feel that stuff. And it already drives me crazy, like on YouTube, all these news things.
It's awful.
It's all fake and funny pictures that aren't real. Like, so yeah, for music, I don't really like it too much. I heard a story the other day. Some guy was recording a record for somebody, and the guy passed away before he was done singing his parts, and they're training AI to sound like the guy to finish the record. Like,
yeah, that is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. In some of these, it's, you could tell that it's fake, but it's getting harder to tell, especially with orchestration. Like I think, like movie soundtracks, for example. I think that's going to be a big problem because you're going to be able to put some people in a room and have AI write up a bunch of stuff, and maybe make some modifications to it, and you've got a whole soundtrack that didn't cost you anything or cost you very little.
Right. Yeah. And some of these mastering things that it just hears your song, and like whenever I stick my stuff in there, it sounds awful. So
Probably compresses the crap out of it, probably.
yeah, it's crazy. I don't like it.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're doing what you're doing, and all these records sound fantastic,
Well,
which is
thanks.
why I wanted to have you on, because I was like, I love learning about the behind the scenes, because, you know, it's one thing to have all these great musicians, but it's also another thing to capture them in the performances and then being able to give us such a wonderful listening experience. And I think a
thanks
lot of
very
people
much.
don't appreciate that, the work that goes on behind the scenes.
Well, thank you. I'm glad that they're turning out okay.
Yeah. So hopefully many more to come. And
Yeah, you got like you put in so much effort. Like you wonder, like hopefully somebody really enjoys it, and it feels so great when somebody does. That's great. Thank you.
yeah. And yeah, hopefully, you know, I think the physical medium stuff is somewhat coming back. And that's important because you can stream things or you can put together playlists, but it's not the same as listening to an album as a unit of music, you know, from beginning to
Right.
end.
Yeah.
And another thing, I don't know your thoughts on this, but you know, in the past, when the CDs came out in the '90s, the late '80s, when they became really popular, you could pack so much music onto it. So, you know, I think now you can get almost 80 minutes of music on a CD, and it used to be like you would expect an album to be 80 minutes, like you need to pack that CD full of music.
Yeah.
But there's something to be said about a record where you've got 20 minutes on each side, and that 40 minutes of music is captivating, and it's just enough to where you can sit down for 40 minutes and listen to a whole record.
Yeah.
Where not many people are going to listen to an 80-minute CD from beginning to end, or 75 minutes or whatever.
Exactly. Right.
So do you see in jazz, I guess, well, you know, in jazz, a lot of these, they'll have, like on Corey's, I think there's 2 extra tracks on the CD versus what the vinyl has. But are you seeing a trend as far as how much music an album is getting? You know, is it less? Do you think artists are focusing more on giving 40 minutes worth of music versus an hour or 75 minutes?
I don't think it's really thought about. I think like when like Corey wants 40 minutes of music, that's what he wants from the artist or whatever, 45 minutes. I don't think they're thinking about it too much.
What about when they pick the tracks that go on the vinyl versus what goes on the CD? So do you pick that, or does...
No, I'll usually get a email from Corey with that info.
Okay, so he'll be like, I want these 6 tracks on the vinyl, and then these 8 tracks go on the CD or streaming. Yeah.
We did one record for somebody where like it wouldn't even fit onto a CD. I can't remember what happened there. We had to do a bunch more editing.
Yeah, that's funny. You know, I found it interesting because people are like, they used to put out way more albums back in the day. The Beatles put out 2 albums a year, but it's like, yeah, they were 35 minutes worth of music. So it would be like today's artists going in and splitting up all their recordings into 2 albums and putting them out.
Yeah. But I tell you, I sure love CDs still. Like I have piles of them here, and in the morning, if I'm mixing a jazz record, I'll grab somebody's CD, like one that Sean Pierce mixed or something, and just opening it and putting it in the CD player. That's gets you in the vibe for the day.
Yeah, that physical medium is just So cool. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to come and talk to me. I know you're busy and got a lot of projects going on, but I really appreciate you coming in and talking about this stuff with me. And hopefully people that watch this episode will appreciate what goes into behind the scenes.
Well, thank you very much, and hopefully you don't see a decrease in your subscribers now.
I don't think so. I'm barely struck. You know, my channel is small and it grows very small. I think I've got like 2,800 subscribers, so it's not huge. So, but I focus on all these small jazz records, which, you know, like jazz is like 4% of all record sales or less. So, but yeah, I think you're gonna give me a boost for sure.
Okay. All right. Thanks a lot.
All right, we'll see you, Sheldon. Thank you so much for hanging out with me.
All right. See ya.